All right, how's it going, everybody? It's BallietBran. So today we got another great stream with Chrispy, who's the founder of hexfire.io. So we're going to go over his website today. And the cool thing about his website is, so Maddie Allen and David Feeder did a stream with him the other day, kind of covering some of the stuff that I'm going to be covering today. I want to get more of that information out there and kind of just, see what he has planned for the future and some questions asked. But the cool thing about his website is we're not even going to be able to cover all of the information that's on the website. So I implore people to check out hexfire.io. If anyone has questions in the chat, definitely ask them. We're going to try and keep this somewhat concise, maybe 60 to 90 minute stream, including the intro and outro, just to conserve everyone's time and to be concise. So let me just say hi to some of the chat real quick. We'll do the intro and get right into it. So Red Squirrel, how's it going? Kaisa, we got Archie S, and he says, good to see you, Bran. So once again, without further ado, let me do the intro. We'll bring up Chrispy, kind of just hear a little bit of a quick background story. I always like to hear how people, got into crypto in general, and then, how they had found out about Hex or Richard Hart, because, the beautiful thing about that is everyone's got a different story and unique perspective. So without further ado, let's do the intro.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Yeah. Say hey. Say hey. Motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch!
Thank you, Richard, for creating and founding the most amazing and disruptive financial technology cryptocurrency ever. Thank you, sir. And nice streams, Mr. BallietBran. It's fabulous.
Awesome, possum. So let me just say what's up to the rest of the chat. We're gonna, so the social media for Chrispy and his website are in the description below. And then once again, we'll pull them up and get right into it. So let me just say hi to the rest of the chat. Crypto Kobe, we got Wrenchy T, Lies Beneath the Truth. How are you today? Doing great, doing really good. Once again, and then we got Eric. So without further ado, Chrispy, if you can just give me a little thumbs up. Whenever you're ready, we'll get into, okay, he's good. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, without further ado, we'll bring up Chrispy, founder of hexfire.io. All right. How are we doing, Chrispy?
Doing pretty good. I was going to run a joke on you, just be frozen on the screen, but you asked for a thumbs up, so I figured I better do it. That light behind me is pretty bright, man. It's screwing up my green screen.
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. I think it looks great, man. It's cool. I like the Hex logo you got on there, and the power of green screens, man. I think is really cool, and I like that background there.
Planet Hex, yeah.
Planet Hex, I like it. Well, so you and I first met. I mean, at least from what I recall, was the first Vegas meetup in 2020. I think it was like June of 2020, and then it wasn't until I had seen your stream once again with David Feeder and Maddie Allen that, and then you'd also messaged me as well of the hexfire.io website. Can you maybe tell us, or just also the crowd as well, like when you got into crypto, maybe how you got into crypto, because I know you're part of the the FIRE community. Maybe you can explain what that is briefly. And then also with Hex, kind of how you first heard about Richard Hart and, things like that.
Yeah, sure, man. I think it's a pretty common story for a lot of people. I got my own
Yeah.
little twists and stuff on it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think probably best way to describe it is this. Like a lot of other people, I saw crypto, wondered what it was about. I actually read the white paper for Bitcoin back in 2009 and did nothing. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
and then just like everything else that we kind of follow along in the news and stuff, then a few years later, Mt. Gox got hacked, and we were all proven right that doing nothing was the right thing. And then
Mm.
I think sometime around 2015, I was like, I should get some Bitcoin. And the only way I can get it at the time that I was aware of, right, that I could do is send some cash in the mail to Canada, and somebody
Okay.
would send me a paper wallet.
Mm.
So I did nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So of course, right, because who was gonna risk some money doing that? So, anyways,
Right.
fast forward, I didn't really get into crypto until 2017, and
Sure. Sure.
and a lot of people you hear that story now, right? But I started with oddly enough, first thing I bought was Bitcoin, but I bought the
Mhm.
Bitcoin in order to participate in the Tezos ICO.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was kind of a good learning experience, and if anybody remembers 2017, it made a whole lot of sense to buy Bitcoin at $1,000 than it did when it was a few $100. And then it made even more sense to buy more when it was at 3, 4, 5, and 10,000. So that's the way of crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
But through all that, and trying to find my way, try to understand all this, that's how I ended up coming across Richard's streams. Originally, self-help stuff. I think I might have. I don't remember exactly the first time I saw him. I think it had to do
Sure.
with probably one of the Bitcoin discussions about the top being in or not in, or what's going to happen, because it's all a little different flavor now, but it's pretty much the same, right? Lots of
Mm-hmm.
people talking about a lot of stuff, and who knows who's right. And so
Mm.
I was looking for the best guidance I could get. As far as motivation on that, yeah, I'll be honest, right? I mean, Richard says this a lot. I think other
Mm-hmm.
people say it. Makes people get a weird look on their face when you say it. Yeah, I was looking to get rich, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, now my twist is I started maybe becoming an adult after I was 40.
Sure.
Um, and how I handle my finances and whatnot. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, that led me to kind of like this FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early. I wouldn't say I'm
Mm.
an expert in that area, but I went on my own path, right? And the idea was to build up enough passive income uh, to uh, to be able to financially support myself and my family. Uh,
Mm.
and naturally, once I discovered crypto again, right, and kind of figured out that might be useful, what really intrigued me about Hex is that from that kind of a model point of view, I only need 1/3 as much capital to retire. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that translates into being able to, hit your life goals 3 times faster or more, right? And that's very conservative.
Yeah.
What I'm basing that on is what you usually look at for returns on capital investment, and
Mm.
trying to calculate that and figure out what you need, because I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
strong proponent for that. Anyways, but
Yeah.
that's how I found crypto. That's how the FIRE mixes with this is. I think there's opportunity for people to reach their goals faster.
Mm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, no one wants to do like the, I guess, quote unquote, like traditional, working at a company or things like that for 40 years just to be able to barely scrape by, when they're at whatever the retirement age, just to, once again, just live kind of at their means versus, like you mentioned, maybe making some sort of investment or, not always spending every single dollar that you're making with the paycheck and putting it into vehicles or assets that can generate yield or, appreciate in value. So I think that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
And, once again, there's so many people that I think they realize, especially with crypto and just some other investments that like you mentioned, they can reach their goals quicker. And who wouldn't want to do that, right? Because at the end of the day, like time is so finite. So if they can get that time back, then they can, spend it however they want, or, with their loved ones and things like that.
Sure, sure. And when you're younger, at least I always thought this way. Yeah, you
Hmm.
never consider, unless something bad's happening in your life and with other people,
Hmm.
at that time, not usually thinking about death, right?
Yeah.
Not thinking about there being an end.
Mhm.
And so when I was in my 20s and 30s, there's always plenty of time to do stuff later. You get into your
Mm.
40s, there's still a little bit of time left. You get in your 50s, you're like, hey, how many more years are there? You know, Eh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not exactly a countdown. I mean, but I don't know, average life expectancy for men,
Mhm.
US is something around 80, I think, right now, you know?
Okay.
So
Yep.
there is an end at some point.
Mm.
Unless you get to live forever, maybe that'll happen. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, yeah, if like kind of you mentioned, if you can think, uh, kind of be a forward thinker, and I think a lot of the Hexicans are that kind of way. Obviously, with some of the stakes, the average staking length and things like that, then that really proves that once again, it's important to kind of think about those things as early as possible if you can. But I guess let's kind of transition into some of the website, because I know once again we're going to cover I guess as much as we can and kind of just go over some questions that I have. But I guess before I even bring up the website itself, like what inspired you to do this in the first place? Because there's so many, whether it's like it used to be Hex.live and Staker app and all these different websites that the community is taking the public data from the hex the hex ecosystem, and once again they're providing value to other people. What made you want to, I guess, what made you realize that things were missing and that you could be able to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, sure, sure. So my background before I retired was, 30 years of information technology stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in kind of a corporate mode like that, I was pretty used to having data, having it available
Okay.
and being able to do whatever geeky things I want to do, right? And go look at data nobody else wants to look at, that type of thing, and try to divine something from it, right? So I've used almost all the resources that are out there in the environment that we have, in our community, and it's awesome, right? Hex Daily Stats can't say enough about
Mm-hmm.
some of the other software, and I've used Hex.vision, you name it, right? Um,
Sure.
and why? Because I was looking at all these different things that were going on. But still, there was always something extra that I was doing. And a lot of the people we know, and I'm sure you know, and some of the people on here, man, there's some geeks out here, right? So you
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
find some people with some spreadsheets. But to
Yeah.
make things repeatable, so you can go back and look at the stuff, you need a lot more data accessible and available. And so there's two things that really pushed me over the top to do something with the site. I had already bought the site a long time ago
Mm-hmm.
with the idea of kind of bringing using Hex to help people who want to fire, right?
Mm.
And just more as an information source. So I had the site, but so I'm paying for it, right? But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything with it. Just had some static data up there. Um, but I just kept building more and more of these spreadsheets that I would have to go grab data and download it, drop it in to make it work, right? So one part of it was let's get something automated for myself. I'm just going to go look at the things I like to look at, you know.
Mm.
And I had some experience with this software before, so I decided to put my hands on the keyboard and go learn how to bring all the data together the best I could, right? So that's one
Mm.
side of it. The other side of it is back in May, we talk about the share rates going up and all this, and I'm a staker and I've got my ladder all set up. But damn, wasn't I surprised when the T-share rate went up 700 in one day. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sitting there with all this hex in my wallet because I'm getting ready. I was in a hurry, right? I'm getting ready to do stakes, and overnight, I lost 3% of the
Yeah.
T-shares I would have gotten. And why did that happen, right? Well, I know why it happens. I mean, the system works the way it works. The math gets done. People in their stake, the share rate goes up. But you gotta figure. I should have been able to figure out when that was going to happen, and that's where I started, right?
Mm.
But building out that model so I can get kind of an idea of when those share rates are going to go up. So if I want to make a decision about staking, I might have made it a day earlier, and not instead of the day after, you know. Um, so that's really, I guess I should stop there. It was a short answer, really, I was supposed to get, but that's
No,
that's
yeah.
the reason why. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And once again, try to do as much research as before as possible, and watch your stream with Maddie and David once again. And you guys were talking about, and I've kind of thought about this as well, but just the way that you guys had kind of explained it was pretty profound, where, Bitcoin does its halving every 4 years, but kind of the share rate increase for Hex is kind of similar to that. And I think you guys had kind of mentioned just general numbers that we're doing about like twice the halving similarly to what Bitcoin's doing. Is that correct?
Well,
Like that?
I don't know exactly what the number would be, but
Okay,
you
sure.
could almost describe that we're doing a halving every day, or a
Okay,
piece of a
yeah,
happening every day, because that share rate going up is the kind of clue in. And what's interesting, if somebody wants to go back and find it, I'm sure you can find this. Plan B. Now, I'm not promoting Plan B, but you guys know who Plan B
sure.
is, right? The guy who came up with a whole model for that now doesn't seem to work, but the
Sure.
model for Bitcoin. He was interviewed one time, and they said the interviewer said to him, "What do you think Satoshi could have done to make Bitcoin better?" And he said, he said, he probably could have done halving every day,
Mm,
or done that type of a mechanism every day. And that was kind of profound because I heard that and I thought
mhm.
about Richard, right? Because remember, Richard's always said the same thing, that he has modeled Hex to be the better Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just kind of rang in my head. I was thinking, there's probably some truth to that, right? That's how
Yeah.
he had planned this whole thing. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate some of the clarification. So we're gonna get to the website in just a second. Let me just say hi to the rest of the chat. So my life is awesome. We got Hex Live says get him with the $2 super chat. Thank you, Archie S. And I couldn't agree more with this, because once again, this isn't my expertise, is the data and the stats and stuff, but the people that do it, like yourself and Staker app, being able to see different subsections of leagues. Maddie had kind of described it in your guys' stream that, it really, like you mentioned, losing the 3% of the actual power of the, the Hex in that one day of the share rate increasing. It allows people to kind of, make decisions that are going to help them get to the future that they want a little bit more quickly. So couldn't agree with that more. Finn Bear, we got Benny Blanco, C Hex My Pulse, and then Cape Fever. So without further ado, once again, I know there's a lot of data. Let's just pull up your website here. And once again, it is hexfire.io. Give me just a second to pull it up here. Okay. And then I am going to put it in the chat real quick. Let me just copy and paste this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the link's in the YouTube chat for anyone that wants to follow along as well. So once again, it's hexfire.io, and let me go back to the home. Okay, so can you just explain what's going on with, obviously there's a lot of different tabs and things like this, but can you just explain what's going on with this first page? I mean, it looks like we got the, the Hex
Yeah.
news share rate.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a split personality in how I approach
Sure.
this.
Mhm.
So I have way too much data. and
Mm-hmm.
way too many pages and way too many charts. The thing is in the hex environment here, man, we can't put it all on one page. So there's
Yeah.
more, so it's been a little tough. And what I what I had done with it is I just built out what I wanted to build out, and I'm kind of going back as I go along and consolidating and adding things like drill throughs and whatnot, so the navigation's a little better. But front page, probably self-explanatory. There's some navigation on the left. Um, top of the page, I'm just showing some of the facts that I think some people are interested in, about what the current payouts are. T-share rate, always a big one that I like to follow. Penalties, that type of stuff, and all of this data is
Mm-hmm.
being sourced primarily through Hex Daily Stats
Okay.
with the work that those guys have done. That's built off of Kodiak stuff, or Code AK. Which is some subgraph data that
Mm.
we're able to pull off the internet. Now, what's that about? That has to do with, if you're not familiar with subgraph, I won't describe it properly, but it's
Sure.
a tool that you can use to pre-stage data from the blockchain. A lot of projects use that. So I'm able to take that information and bring it in and build a data model. And
Mm.
so what I have up on the front screen there right now is just simply the calculated new share rates going out for a
Mm.
period of time. And deeper within the website, we've got a full page on it. But that's what we're doing for that is everybody knows that T-share rate goes up. And
Mm-hmm.
we all know that the best time to stake is now, because you'll get the best T-share rate. But being able to predict a little bit as to when the big steps will come up is really what this is about. And so I'm simply using the 180-day moving average at the moment for payout to
Okay.
calculate future yield, and plugging it into the calculation that says, okay, this is the new share rate on that day if those stakes get ended. And so you can
Mm.
see, sometimes, in the past, it definitely doesn't look flat. It's always sloped. But as you go into the
Yeah.
future, you see these flat spots, because those represent probably larger stakes that got really good ROI that'll come out and will increase the share rate.
Mm.
But there hasn't been another stake made yet, which will
Mm.
increase it between the two steps. So you see there's kind of like flat steps. And
Okay. Yeah.
every time we approach one of those and we hit a new kind of like local high, what'll happen is all our short stakers will come in, and all of a sudden it'll fill in and become an angle. So if you look at the red on the screen today, that's there, and the red line that's there for actual. Um, when we got that 700 increase a few weeks ago, that was a flat plateau.
Okay.
Well, now it's angled up, because we've got, I don't know, something like 80% of all stakes that are made on a monthly basis are 45 days or less. And so they
Mm.
begin
Mhm.
to build on the base T-share rate and increase it, increase it, increase it. And so that's why you end up with these angles. But then when you get past that 45-day period, they flatten out again.
Mm. Yeah, no, this is really cool, and once again, for someone like myself, I think this just really gives a good visual, as kind of like you mentioned. Sure, we've heard these terms a million times, where you're not going to get a better share rate, as far as doing it today. But then this kind of just really gives you that visual of, hey, man, the longer that you wait, it's really gonna give you less shares. So I guess where else would you recommend? Once again, we're not going to be able to cover all of the data on the website, but I kind of want to give people some ideas and things like that they can explore. What would you recommend that maybe we look at next? Like, I mean, I see we got staking strategies, charts, staking data. And you said that there's also a full version of this chart as well, kind of that
Yeah,
goes.
we can go look at a couple of these different things. And we'll do that first. I'll give you a direction on how to get there. The other thing I would say, and before we head down that road. What
Mhm.
I'm really looking to do is so first off, for the critics out there, throw the critic stuff. Yes, I know
Yeah.
T-share rate goes up. I joked
Mm.
with whales. I was able to prove T-share rate went up, but I already knew that, right?
Yeah.
I already knew that goes up. But within that, at kind of like the next level down, there are some decisions we can make along the way, having to do with our
Mhm.
stakes and what we do in the system, that will incrementally improve your situation. And over 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long you're going to be part of the community, 15 years, like many of us are going to be, um, those inches add up to yards, right? To
Mhm.
use the football analogy, right? It adds up
Sure.
over time. If every time I make a transaction, I'm gaining, or in terms of relative position, 3-4%, that's better than being down 3 or 4%. So
Mm.
even if it is only little pieces and bits. So that's where this is coming from. So let's go look at, if we go to charts, and you'll see that this chart's there again. There's a few different things on here that are pretty cool. But let's go to
Nice.
the estimated share rate in the center top.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that guy there. Now, this one gives you a little bit different view, and this will be added to probably within the next week. Um, but this gives you a little bit longer time frame. We're going out to
Yeah.
35. And you can see two different models here. If you click on base model, you'll see just the model that we had in the front screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
But if you do all models, it'll also include the Hopper multiple. Now, Hopper's a
What is
guy,
that?
yeah, Hopper's a guy working on, who does a lot of work with data as well, and
Okay.
he's out on Twitter, and he has a very good um, mathematical solution to the share rate. So while my share rate is using the 180-day calculation, he
Mm.
derived a formula that provides a share rate, and this is his formula in blue.
Mm.
That's up on the screen. And so I would say that while the calculated one using the 180-day payout is conservative, and it's kind of
Mm.
like the bottom limit, I wouldn't say that his is the top limit. I really, things in staking can change so much. But I would
Sure.
expect that the actual will be somewhere between these two lines,
Okay.
and maybe closer to the blue line than the purple line in the end.
Sure.
And so you can come in here and hover over and see what those numbers are. You can also, you
Mm.
know, zoom in using the sliders at the bottom, or overall on the date, and just change it however you'd like it to be to see more definition on it.
Okay.
And you can see how they look like they're flat lines
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're high level, but then they get a little more jagged. Of course,
Mm.
the calculated one's smoothed already. But you can just see what all the differences are that are here. There's just something for you to play with and to look at.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. This is super interactive, and once again, Maddie had kind of said that he had asked Richard if he knew for a website where kind of a lot of the data was compiled, and he had said that the website that you created is kind of what he was looking for for a super long time.
Yeah, me too. It took it took what, almost 3 years to really, for
Mhm.
all the tools to fall into place to actually get this data.
Mm.
I mean, it's not that it wasn't available, and it's not like somebody couldn't have done it, but
Mhm.
it's like anything new that we have. It takes time for this stuff to become accessible.
Mhm.
Not to mention it, doing this might not have been a priority 2 years ago, right? Based on how things were moving along. But now we're a little bit more mature, in our community, you might want to look a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Hmm.
No, that's
So,
really cool. Um,
so if you click back on charts, we'll take a look at a couple things. We'll just stay kind of high level at the moment.
sure. Sure.
Probably, well, I'll take that back. Why don't you go ahead and click on estimated monthly payouts up in the top left?
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Now this one's pretty cool because
Yeah.
everyone's always asking the same questions over and over again about, well, what's going to happen with with stakes ending, and I mean, if you've heard it once, you heard it 1,000 times. Somebody spreading
Mm.
FUD that, oh my God, 1 billion hex is coming out this month. The price is going to crash. Well, you know what, dude? 3-4 billion a month come out. So good
Yeah.
luck, right? If
Yeah.
that's all it's going to take, and I think you're mistaken. And you
Mm.
can clearly see that in some different ways. But this is charting out again based on the estimated payouts. Again, might be conservative because I'm using the estimated payout from the 180-day moving average. But you can come in here and see how much of it looks like it's going to be yield, how much of it is stake tax. You can also drill down on any of these, and you can get down to the data at the next level and look at the months. You see there's only this many months left in the year. And then if you
Mm.
really wanted to see, so it's kind of like hex vision in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can drill down one step further and go see the days themselves.
Wow.
And of course, any of this stuff is available data wise, right? We can get it pulled out and other people can use it. And just since you did this one, you looked at that, look how tiny the yield is on this that's left for this month, right?
Let's go back here. Was it this page that you were saying?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. These
Okay.
all work, but the
Okay.
yield
Yep.
is very, very tiny in comparison
Mm.
to future dates.
True.
And that's because, again, that heavy short-term staking is really eating into the ability to generate yield.
Mm.
Because obviously, because a lot less, right? A lot less
Mm.
T-shares, so they earn a lot less. And one of the things I hope to build sometime here in the near future, just an example page that shows what serial short staking, what the outcome of that is versus a ladder approach of staking, even with the same amounts of hex involved, because per year, the earning of value, right, or earning of yield, is probably diminishing about 10 to 12% for a staker who
Mhm.
does serial stakes. And there's some reasons to do them, right? And some people like to do them for a variety of reasons. Some have the goal of driving up the share rate sooner, which does happen, and that's part of the gameplay, right? I mean, if I make it harder for everybody else to get in by making the share rate higher, then my relative position changes.
True. Okay.
There's some people that don't know any better. Some people are just testing, and whatnot. But I think that probably based on what I'm seeing, there's a lot of people that do some things that don't make any sense, pay more gas
Yeah.
than they do get yield.
Mm.
And it might be just, I don't know why, but I mean, part of this
Mm.
is that kind of education to get that information out to people.
True. Well, and like kind of like you mentioned, there's I mean, for people like us that have been there since the beginning, we've just seen so much evolve, and now these tools allow, once again, there were some people, and maybe myself included, might have done more stakes than say I would do now on say a yearly basis and things like that. But these tools allow people that are just getting in to really kind of come up with that plan, and that's really cool because like you mentioned, some of the stuff is, if you're going to be staking your hard-earned money and getting the shares and things like that, you'd probably want to maximize the outcome for that person's individual goals. So that's really cool. Let me ask you something. How long, because once again, for someone like yourself that's been crunching data and stuff like this seems like it would take a long time to construct and build. How long did it take yourself to get this website up? And I think you mentioned on Maddie's stream that it updates the data a couple times a day, something like that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this, man.
Mhm.
Anybody who's a hard worker will understand that there's plenty of times you get into a job you like, or even a part of the job you like, you might work 10, 12 hours a day. So I found myself putting in some mega hours on this.
Mhm.
Not all of it useful, but Get a lot of
Sure.
a lot of learning as I go, kind of thing, because you know, I wasn't always hands on with all the software I've ever used.
Mm,
But I've been working on this since probably about March.
okay.
Um, you know, on a daily basis. Um, so just kind of adding to it, and then for updates, I do have, you know, the daily information. I only bring that down once a day. You know, so the
Hmm.
staking information, that type of thing. But otherwise, like prices and whatnot, probably about every 4 or 5 hours. The system
Sure.
updates, and so I went. You know, I went on vacation last week. I didn't touch this; it just went by itself, right? Which is really the
Yeah.
goal, is to make something that will just keep replenishing itself, and low maintenance, high value. Um,
Mm,
I use it all the time to go look at things that I want to look at. So
yeah. Well, and it looks like here there's a little address filter too. So someone can just put in their ERC20 address and same thing based on the chart. It'll probably just kind
you
of
can
give the
put,
specific results.
yeah, you can select multiple addresses there. I've been upgrading, and we'll see one of the other pages where you can just add a list. You know, like I have a
Okay.
list of addresses. You just comma separate them and drop them in, and then it'll
Mm,
show them all. But if you do it, if you drop down on that and just select one of the addresses, it shows up at random. It doesn't have to be a particular one. You'll see,
sure.
you know, what that wallet has in terms
Okay.
of information for the chart. Okay.
Mm,
And now if
I
you,
like that.
yeah, and so you can put your own in there and see what it looks like. And there's different ways to visualize it. And if you go to the top at the back to the address filter again, there's a little eraser right above there. Kara, go ahead and erase that. And it brings it back out. And then I threw in the suspected OA addresses. So this is
Mm,
another thing that people come up with all the time. The OA is going to kill us with all this staking.
yeah. Yeah.
But if you do the drop down on the where it says all,
Okay.
um,
Under owner or
yeah, under owner, yep,
okay. Let's see.
yep, and do
Okay, this is
OA,
cool.
yeah. And so this will show you the outcome of these, the stakes that the OA has, and when they're expected to come out. Um,
Mm,
assuming these are the correct addresses. These are the
sure.
3,500 addresses that were picked up by the audits that
Mm,
Gunther at one time had done in
mhm,
conjunction with DOSBomb. I believe DOSBomb provided
mhm.
the data originally.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's really cool. The cool thing about this, and not even Bitcoin has this, but I mean, to my knowledge, I mean, and maybe you could correct me on this, but Hex seems to be, one of the most transparent cryptocurrencies, right? As far as a lot of the data that you can pull and being able to go through other people's, or other addresses, I should say, in the ecosystem, and
yeah,
like you
yeah,
mentioned, suspected OA and things like that.
that's right. I aspire to be an OA. No, whale, I
Yeah.
guess. I aspire to be a whale.
No, it's
Um,
it's so true.
yeah, yeah. So click charts, and we'll show people. We're doing visual stuff first here because people
Yeah,
get
yeah,
this,
of
so get
course.
excited. Um, you can go. Why don't you click on estimated total supply top right? We'll just
Okay,
pop that for a
perfect.
second. It's going to take a couple seconds to load the
Sure,
actual
sure,
chart
sure.
as it's calculating. This is another one that people do talk about a lot, and they're like, "Oh, what's the supply going to be?" And I think other people have crunched the numbers already, but our inflation yearly is a little bit less than 2%, and on
Mm, mhm,
average, you know, it looks a lot like it's a lot, but this kind of gives you a little different view of you know, what we're expecting to see come out, get minted based on these stakes, right? I'll give
mm.
you a little better way. So this is something somebody had asked for. So I had put it up here. But you can again track that along just to see what we think the the total supply will be. And I will and always footnote this stuff. These are
Mhm,
estimates based on
mhm.
what we've seen the system do. This isn't going to be the actual supply. It could be less.
Sure.
It could be more, but you know we're using the best information we have based on how
Mm,
the system's run. In a lot of ways, for me, when I look at it, um, the conservativeness of the numbers allows me to feel much better about the moon math, you know?
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff when we look at it, it's big enough as it is, right? Never
Yeah,
mind
totally.
that things may be hugely different and better, right, for
Sure.
us. And it always comes back to the same thing, man. I don't know how. I know there's some people probably listening that don't like staking and whatnot, but I'll tell you from watching what happened with my own bags over the last couple of years, I can't imagine having not been staked, right?
Yeah,
And
same.
you know the amount of yield that you get, and yes,
Mm,
I get that if I had really, really, really diamond finger hands, you know,
sure.
and I could sit on a whole bag of hex and never sell it, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't do that,
Yeah,
right? You know, just
it's
because I can't
same
seem to
for
hold
me.
on to anything else. Um, you know, there's
It's
only
so true, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's only
it's
so
like that
much.
set it and forget it.
Yeah, and it's nice, that part of it. But that being
Mhm,
said, you know,
mhm,
to each their own, right? So go ahead
sure.
and hit charts again, and let's see what other exciting stuff we could do.
Perfect. This is really cool.
Um, we won't dig into it, but if you want to go see
Sure.
visually the liquidity pairings, you can do that, and they'll
Okay.
show what the current hex daily stats is, and you know, just showing you what's going on with that
Mhm.
liquidity. Um, Certainly not 100% comprehensive, but this is what we're getting reported back to us. So that's a popular one.
Mhm.
Um, and then if you go back to charts again,
Mhm.
just because I could do it, I did
Mhm.
visualize the hex daily stats. And so you know that chart we have on that, no, not chart, but table with all those
Sure.
different
Yeah. Yep.
numbers. So here is each one of those in chart form. So if you really wanted to know, you can come in here. You can look at the information by changing the date range for all of them. If
Wow.
you go to one of them and you go to the top right corner, there's a little focus thing comes in. You click on
Okay.
that, it'll open up the full screen for you,
Oh, whoops.
and then
Okay.
you can use the slider. You know, when it's visible, to change the dates and whatnot. But in this way, you can visualize all those different charts.
This is amazing, man. I know a whole bunch of analytical people, and I know they yeah they'd love to see this data and information, and like you mentioned too, I think it is an important caveat that once again, you know, none of this is absolutely certain, right? Like you mentioned the
Yeah.
estimated average, but you know, would rather want to be more conservative than less conservative, which, like you had mentioned, makes the moon math even more cool. And it's awesome that you had taken, you know, the information that was already on Hex Daily Stats and just put it into an incredible visual format that allows people like myself that maybe you see some of the numbers and some of it makes sense, but then you see the visuals and it's like, okay, this really paints the bigger macro picture.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's so many things that, and, you know, I actually had to ask for advice a couple times from people and say,
Mhm.
hey, let's, should I put this kind of information out? And
Yeah.
about 80% said, yeah, absolutely. Freedom of information, man. Make this information available. But you start to uncover your own misunderstandings as well. Like,
Sure.
and so it's really important to, like, take a deep breath, not run off with information and go, oh, look at this, everybody's a liar, and then you know, they
Mm.
haven't been telling the truth, because there's things
Hmm.
that you uncover. Like,
Mm.
I'll say one thing to you that's pretty interesting, right? You
Hmm.
know that you can start a stake in the morning,
Yep.
right, and decide before UTC midnight to end it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Well,
Without the penalty.
and without any penalty. Well, there's a shitload of those that got done. I mean, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, like thousands happen that way.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Yeah.
so one person looks at it and goes, conspiracy.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
faking the numbers, right? Well,
Okay. Sure.
you look a little deeper, you realize, nah. I mean, who would even go through the trouble? I mean,
Yeah. In the gas
because
fee.
all does change the numbers a few thousand, right? So who would even
Mm.
go through the trouble? But anyways, those are kind of like downsides. And then other ways you start uncovering new trends and things that are pretty cool. Like I'll show you another
Yeah.
chart once we go back to charts. But this
Okay.
one here did our best. I did my best to kind of get each one of them listed and so people can go through and look at the different charts.
Yeah. Well, and like you had mentioned that because I haven't been streaming as frequently aside from these past couple of weeks, but same thing. You're right that maybe is an Easter egg that many from the beginning might have known about. But yeah, for those that don't, because I've had it happen with myself where I had maybe done a stake for myself or helped someone else do a stake, and then once we kind of started doing the math, obviously before the stake was official, before that day had rolled over and had set, was like, okay, hey, maybe let's change some of these numbers and like kind of like you had alluded to, that the only fee isn't that emergency end stake penalty, it's just the gas fee, as long as that stake didn't actually roll over to the next day and actually get set. So that's really cool. And then real quick before we get into the other stuff that you'd want to cover, I just wanted to, I'm not going to be able to cover all the comments because once again, I want to cover his website and kind of stick to a focused mode. But the Coin Critic says, hey, Chrispy, nice to put a face with the history. Congrats on making your Fire vision part of the Hex community. Well done and thanks. And then he has a second comment that says, a fire isn't just a word. Chrispy has been serious about financial independence and delayed gratification before Hex. So yes, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate the good words. Yeah, it's hard, to get your finances straight, but it's important, right?
Yeah. It's so true. It's not necessarily taught in, when you go in school, not necessarily does everyone learn, kind of like you'd mentioned, some of the power of, most people that I know that maybe are in my age group, once again, when they get their paycheck for, biweekly and things like that, obviously they've got their bills, but then whatever's left, usually they're in food and stuff. Usually they're spending all of it, and we've seen with, you had mentioned with the Hex stake, staking Hex, kind of saving yourself from yourself. And honestly, I couldn't agree more too, man, where same thing. If all of the Hex that I have staked was liquid, then yeah, it would be way more tempting to sell, and that would have been at a lot lower prices, back in the day. So it's really cool to just stick with the plan, and I've heard Funding Jim or just other people talk about in any investing that get a pen and paper and put your goals down and
write it down.
Kind of just, kind of draft something. So this definitely helps people with that.
And one thing I'd say too is age doesn't have, it has something to do with this situation, but man, our whole culture, I don't care whether you're 60 or 20, we're all trained to be debt slaves, and that is exactly what we are for the most part. Until you're able to take control of your own finances in a way that you don't have to, you're not at the mercy of someone else, right? Then you continue in that financial slavery. I mean, shoot, man, I hate to go off in the wrong direction too much, but it ties to this. I went on vacation last week. Why did I go on vacation? Well, I want to go with one of my kids and some of the grandkids to Disney World. I didn't pay for the trip. Right? I mean, I paid my portion of it. We probably spent the equivalent of what a number of people in this country get paid in a year to go to Disney World. Now, I didn't stay at some fancy resort, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking a minimal kind of luxury type place. Not even luxury, right?
Totally.
Walk 60 miles to go to the parks. And, and I'm not joking about that, but, and paid all the way. But think about that, man. And then we're looking around and, most of the people, and maybe not the people in this listen to this, but most people don't have $1,000 they can pull out of the bank.
Yeah.
So where are all these people getting $5,000-$10,000? Well, they're borrowing more and more money, you know.
Mm,
Anyways, I go off on a tangent on that. I did it too,
I appreciate
you
that.
know. I did
Yeah.
it too when I was a little bit younger, made my mistakes.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the price. All right, let's
Yeah.
go ahead and hit cost of T-shares. And
Okay. Perfect.
yeah,
Okay.
right, that one there. So this was just interesting for you to take a look at, see what everybody else is getting for their,
Mm,
you know, what did they pay for their T-shares? And the top one's all open stakes by start date. And so
okay.
not unexpectedly, price goes up, you know, and cost of the T-shares. But it gives you a little bit of definition as to what people are actually paying in terms of hex after their bonus.
Mm,
And the reverse is at the bottom, which is
okay.
saying, hey, for when the stakes end, what did people pay for them?
Yeah.
And you can see that we had this kind of like bowl shape,
Mm,
right?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Towards the end, and it's a combination of things going on, but it's really showing the increase in the share rate, right?
Mm,
It's going up fast enough that it changed the shape of that curve at the end. That would be one way to explain it. Happy to
sure.
dig into super details another time with people,
Yeah. Of course.
but really interesting to me that it was kind of flat, and then get into the get into about when we started having derivatives and whatnot
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
being brought out, that we changed the shape of the curve.
Mm,
Go ahead and hit charts again. We'll look at one last one. And I think this is an important one, is that new stake length analysis. Um, and this is one of the misnomers. We talk about staking averages a lot. And listen,
okay. Yep.
there's nothing more impressive than the fact that we have so much locked up for so long at Hex. But
Totally.
this gives us a little bit more definition into what's really going on with people and their staking. And you've got two axes, one on the left, one on the right. But just showing what the weighted averages are by the
Mm,
number of T-shares getting thrown out into the future. It was really cool. These peaks that you see that pop up, those are actual events that took place, that
okay.
cause those things. So if I'm not mistaken, that was 1 billion hex that was staked on that particular one, on that
Sure.
peak.
Sure. Sure.
And then let me pull up a little better chart for myself to look at it.
Sure. Sure.
So you look at that first peak, that was what, March 21. So I think if somebody goes back, you'll see that peak was like 1 billion hex that got staked.
Okay. Yep.
And I think February 22 was also another billion, but that was also around the time that the HSI started. And then
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
you can see the maxi peak in May. So I
Mm,
attribute
hmm.
2022 peak to being May, being maxi, and then the August 22 peak appears to be the influx of ICOSA
Okay. Yeah.
stakes, or not ICOSA stakes, but the launch of ICOSA and the resultant
Mm,
HSIs. So pretty interesting to follow all that. And, um, you can just see what the average stake lengths are, weighted by both T-share and by hex, the amount of hex that's getting thrown out in the future. And so this is important because some people go, if you just go out greater than the average and you're going to win. Well, I would say that if you go out greater than, and of course, going out greater than the average overall is great, right? The 6 point however many years. But I think I definitely would be looking at ladder steps past 2 years to take the
okay. Yep.
most advantage. Because if you're looking at it from a gameplay perspective, if I want to
Mm,
win against you and we're both staking, I got just a little bit longer than you, and
hmm.
you're at 1.9 years, then I'm going to win
Yeah.
according to you, as compared to you, right?
Mm, hmm.
Uh, Now, of course, longer's better. I'm a strong proponent of going out years with my stakes, having a staking ladder, but it took me 3 years to get my staking ladder built. So, you know, to my satisfaction. So it took some time and effort to
Yeah.
do that. But
No, exactly. And same thing with myself too, where once again, as times kind of evolved, it's like, okay, the plan for the ladder itself and previous stakes ending and new stakes starting kind of changes, which is really cool with this info for new people, because once again, it just gives them a lot of information to kind of cover. If you don't mind, real quick, so I haven't read this comment all the way, but it's by Franklin. He says, how's it going, Franklin? Says, hey, Crispy Man, did you guys happen to remove the least stake ending per month/year chart? Haven't been able to find it lately.
yeah, you probably need a little bit more info from Franklin. Are you talking about
Sure.
the, he might be talking about the best time to stakes chart, which we
Okay,
have
sure.
or we have that up there, if that's what he's
Okay.
looking for. We can go look. But like you see, we spent a whole hour already talking. We haven't
Yeah.
even scratched the surface. So I'll
Right.
but I'm glad we got through the charts, because it kind of gives you an
Yeah.
idea of what's happening with those. So let's
Mm.
go look at probably the next thing.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
let's go and then I'll show Franklin what we're talking about,
Sure.
where that other stuff is. Just go to hex staking data.
Okay. Let's see here. Perfect.
So this one here, I've been doing a lot of updating on and kind of cleaning up and whatnot to make it more usable for people.
Mm.
A lot of feedback that there's too much information. I get that. I knew that before we started. You know,
Sure.
there's too much information there for everybody to digest, and you know, you got every level of person in here. So I've got, I don't know, 6-7 pages of staking data. So what I try to do with this instead is to just give the staking data one face. There's an advanced staking data page, and we can go look at that for Franklin in a couple minutes. But
Sure. Sure.
this shows all stakes. These are all open stakes as of last night.
Okay.
And you can do a whole bunch of sorting up at the top, you know, not sorting, but filtering by start date, expected end date. You can see, you know, decide whether you want to look at GA stakes or stakes that are ended, the actual end dates. And then I mentioned before the filter with the addresses. You could drop in multiple addresses in there. So like if I was on Stake Hex today, love that site, right? I could use the same string and just drop it in here.
Okay.
And hit the filter button, and it'll just show you your stakes or whichever stakes you want to look at. And then again, and this is another good one at the end. If you do the last one, do OA related, yes, and it'll just show you all the OA stakes. And so you can sort them by end date and look at what's happened. And I'm just curious what the OA is going to do. There's got some stakes coming up here towards the end of the year that if they're ended, they're going to make a difference. You know, it'll make a big difference to the T-share rate. If they're not ended, then there could be some penalties that come out of that for us if somebody lets them bleed, or if somebody GAs them.
Yeah.
Does the good accounting, then it'll return some number of T-shares back. Well, they won't return them to the pool, but they will no longer take up any more of our interest. So this next few months will be fun because payouts should be going up one way or another, and T-share rate may go up more than expected. You know, which will be nice. And yeah, so the machine keeps printing, man, keeps going.
Yeah.
But this one's for that purpose. And you may see if I go, if you go to the right-hand side of this screen, I can make it bigger for me too. I had you on little screen and I couldn't read it, so I just made it bigger.
Totally understand.
Yeah. So there's a couple things most people understand this stuff. They looked at their hex stakes before. So everything on the left-hand side is pretty clear. You get to estimated payout. Again, it's based on the 180-day moving average at the moment. Estimated ROI, That should be self-explanatory. That's just looking at it in hex terms, not dollar terms. But then
Okay.
you get to restake days. Now, restake days is how many days you need to restake both your principal and
Okay.
your, and this is an estimate again,
Mhm,
but both your principal and yield, how many days you need to stake it in order to keep the same number of T-shares. And
That's cool.
yeah, so you'll see a number of cases they're exactly the same, which is to be expected because that's exactly what the calculation for new share rate does. Is
Sure.
it changes it, and so
Hmm.
it'll be color coded if for some reason you can't get the same amount.
Okay.
Then the stake cost, this is another cool one to look at. As of the day, closing of the day that you made the stake, what was your hex worth that went into the principal? And then what's the current value?
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, that's amazing to look at. I mean, even just for example, this is the '08, but yeah, $22,111, and and now
Dude,
it's
man,
5 million. That's
you know,
ridiculous.
don't kill me too much, guys. But if I had known,
Mhm.
if I probably would have bought. I would have bought as much as I could have. But here's the
Yeah.
thing: is with any of these investments, hindsight's great,
Yep.
right? But what's probably more important is once you hit a threshold where you're believing in a project, it's got some time behind it. Let your winners run, and
Hmm.
no, you're not necessarily double down, but people use that terminology. But double down and continue to build your position until
Mm.
there's a time when you need to come out. And
Mm.
if you had done that with DCA approach to hex over a period of time, and as you gained more confidence in it, you had done more, you'd be sitting very pretty. In fact, I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of you are. Um,
Yeah.
Now these stakes are pretty crazy because these are all away stakes. So
Right.
if you click off that again and make it so it shows all the stakes, you'll see some different numbers show up there maybe.
1 second.
And yeah, it's thinking
Maybe.
real hard, trying to
Okay.
sort
No
all that
worries. I was
data.
gonna say I could
But
give it a
but that
refresh
that
too.
that's what'll come from this. There you go. So
And yeah.
there's all sorts of fun things you'll find in this if you look at it. I mean, just the number of people who staked just a few hex, crazy, all by itself. Um,
The feature that I really like is and honestly I didn't know that this existed because once again we're not gonna be able to cover everything, but even this one feature alone, honestly I didn't really know that this existed until you had just told me. But that is a damn important, for at least myself, tool of how many days, as you had mentioned, with the principal and yield, that it would take to get the same amount. So that's once again uh, pretty cool for just being able to tweak constantly the different ladder as kind of time evolves and life
yeah.
evolves too.
Well, yeah, and we all do the same thing with this stuff, or not all of
Mhm.
us, I guess. But I'm
Sure.
always looking, and now I can go to one of the calcs and go use the calculator, and just keep fooling with it until I get it, right? Which is what I do when I want to know, what I'm going to get with a stake. But this gives you kind of an aggregate, and probably the very last thing on here to talk about is if it's helpful to you or not. I don't know, but the
Mhm.
estimated Ethereum fee to actually end these stakes today.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. That's really
again,
awesome. Yeah.
and how I started using that is I looked at my own ladder, and
Okay.
this is not a complete picture, but roughly what would it take? And I don't know, throw out a number like 5 ETH. Like, so let's just say it was
Sure.
going to take me 5 ETH. Well, I might want to think about in this bear stocking up on 5 ETH, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that I have it. Now, of course, some of those stakes aren't going to come out for a long time, and it'll probably be more, maybe it'll be less. But just getting into the habit of kind of building up a little cash of Ethereum while it's cheap in order
Mm,
to do all my stakes in the future. You know,
totally.
so that would be
Yeah,
an example.
and like you mentioned, that's something to think about. That obviously every single day that you're staked, when you end the stake, it has to go back, and the fee to start the stake is way less than it is to end it because it's got so much more computation to do the end stake.
Yep, yep. Um, let's do, I see time here. Let's go to, now I'll show you my little secret. This answers the question that
Nice.
Franklin had. Because I'm trying to, I got the feedback that the website's too complicated. I think one woman told me it was too aggressive.
I don't think so at all.
But I
Yeah.
get it though. I get it
Sure,
because
sure.
there's some people, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
make it more friendly, etc.
Sure.
But if
Okay.
you go down to the navigate to page and you
Okay,
do
once.
a click down, you'll where it has a little caret.
Oh, okay,
and,
okay,
and you
okay.
can select there, and there should be a page listed there that says advanced. Well, do advanced staking data first, right? So click
Okay.
that. It's clicked. Okay, and then hit go.
Okay.
And so it'll just change it should just change our page.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so
I know it'll. Oh,
try
sorry.
clicking that again.
Okay,
Right on
hold
the
on.
go. Huh. Well, maybe I broke it along the way. I don't know. Let's do go ahead and do the drop down again. Let's change
Okay.
screens and let's go to scroll down a little bit. And how about scroll up? No? Okay. So I may have to show you on a separate page.
Sure, no worries.
Go ahead and do this for me. Just go to the top where it says home and towards the top of the page, click home. I may have forgotten to update this one for some reason.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Go ahead and hit the go again. We're already selected to advanced
Okay.
analytics. Maybe we'll get it this way. Well, that's a funny situation. Give me 1 second. See if
Well, and to your point, like whether it was like Hex.Vision or this site, you know, yeah, I think it's cool that like the time that it takes to load things just shows how in depth the analytics and details are. So I think it's cool that, you know, you're taking some of the feedback, as you had mentioned, from other people and kind of listening to all sides. But I know for other people, you know, one family member in particular is totally a stat nerd, you know, so you know, it's cool that all that exists.
All right. So guys, I'm sorry I broke the site. I updated it right before here. So it's not broken, but
No
there's
worries. Sure.
there's some pages behind the scenes.
Understood.
So yeah. So for Franklin, just PM me or DM me when you get a chance, and I'll make sure you have it. But what you would do is you would go to either advanced analytics or the advanced staking page, and within there you can get to a ton more stuff.
That's good to know.
And so I'll push another update up here in a couple minutes so that it's out there.
Sure. I like that you got these little hexagon icons too, and once again, it's cool that we're not going to be able to cover all this data, but you know, I kind of want to implore people to you know, obviously check out the website and, you know, be able to, whether someone puts in their own address or, you know, the OA and some of these filters, like you know, it's cool that none of this, and I mean, to my knowledge, like this kind of stuff doesn't really necessarily exist to this advanced of a level for Bitcoin. Like, is that correct? At least to this kind of level of detail, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're correct about that.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and I suspect even with the data that I've put together, I'm more idiot than savant. So I suspect there's probably some people who have exactly this data that's out there, but it is a little difficult to put together and take some maintenance and cost and whatnot. So I just think it's not available to all of us, you know. And so
Yeah.
this is a way to get the info out there.
Mm.
If I could get you to do one more thing, and
Yeah,
maybe
of
then
course.
we could click on questions. So this is,
Sure.
if you go to actionable insights.
Okay.
So again, kind of going along this vein of, okay, so what? You've got all these charts and all these different things, but you know what, dude? I'm just interested in figuring out how to do things a little bit better. Give me a clear, easy message. This isn't it yet, but this is kind of what I started working on to kind of bring this together. And I anticipate having a little bit better of a list that says, hey, listen, these are some things you need to know about, and, like, and we call them actionable insights. Some are pretty obvious, like, when Hex is down 93%, you might want to buy some.
Yeah.
Right. Because I find myself doing this too. I'm like, I'm not going to buy it at 33. It's got to be 29. But you know what? At $1, it's not going to make much difference to me. And if you don't think it's going to $1, you're probably in the wrong place, because it's probably going to $10. So whether you get it at 3.3 or 2.9, so what? But kind of throw this out there, and I actually suffer from this, right? I'll stop myself as well. I'm like, I'm not going to go any further. All right.
You know what you mean?
Then staking Hex now is always a good time, right? It's always the best time to do it now, but everybody's situation's different. Listen, if I had, I don't know, if I had money in the beginning and I knew what I was doing, yes, that would have been the time to do all of my stakes forever.
Sure.
But I didn't. That's not how things worked out. So I got to do things to go along. So yeah, the t-shirt rate is probably going to go up a little bit less than this, but it's still expected to go up another 7 or 8% between now and the end of the year. Probably at a minimum. And so that means round it to 10%. If you wait till the end of the year, you're going to pay 10% more for the same yield that I'm going to get now.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And so, but it's how the system works. We know that's how it works. So go ahead and do it. Then kind of tying that together for how long to stake. Well, I definitely favor Richard's advice of doing a staggered kind of a ladder.
Totally.
And if you think about it this way, if your ladder's out kind of long enough as you build it, and it might take you some time to do it, you're not staking for 30 days, right? Even if you're monthly, right? You might be staking for 4 years because you're already loaded up your monthlies, right?
Yeah.
If you were thinking that way. And so you're getting the benefit of forever beating out the guys and ladies who are doing these 30-day, 7-day sticks, right? And all that adds up to your benefit in the future. And a side note to this is I did experience a lot of angst. Most of my stakes were kind of like yearly at first. And then I developed them into quarterlies. And for me personally, quarterlies too long.
Yeah.
My mind hurts, right? Kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. I really liked getting my stakes set up monthly.
Yeah.
Monthly. And so I like that. So anyways, that's where I went with it. As mentioned before, when you're going to start a stake and when you're going to end a stake, probably good to look at the share rates. Now, the numbers might not be exactly right as to exactly what the share rates will be. But if you are planning to do a stake, try to get in before a big rise. And when you're looking at your end date, try to end. You're going to be restaking, because why miss out on a little better gain on the next stake, right? So you could do that.
Right.
So those are just some of the things you can go after with this type of data.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, awesome, man. I mean, once again, it's pretty incredible. Like, I hadn't seen all the stream with yourself, Maddie and David, and I think you guys had streamed for like a few hours, but even with the little bit that we've covered so far, as you kind of mentioned, it's like the tip of the iceberg. Do you maybe want to? Should we kind of wrap things up and just see if there's any last minute comments or questions?
Yeah.
And then,
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I can go as long as you want to go. I mean, I go for hours, man.
Because
Because I like talking about all this stuff, and I get real pretty geeky. But we, I'm good. I know the question about the derivatives comes up a lot. Some of the derivative stuff I just haven't gotten to. I could,
Mm.
like for instance, display maxi data or something like that up there. That's a little bit easier.
Mhm.
There's some work that needs to be done on the Hadron ecosphere for me to be able to get the data, mostly on me and not on others, because I'm
Sure.
not like a Web3 developer, though I'm feeling like I need to be, right?
Sure.
Why? Because if I was a Web3 developer, I would have learned what I need to do to go get more data myself directly from, connection through Web3. Right now,
Mhm.
what I'm relying on is data coming out of things like Subgraph, and as I mentioned
Mm.
before, I'm doing a lot of things with Hex Daily Stats. That being said, I know Alex over at Hadron says
Mhm.
he's working on, because I heard him on a stream actually talking about this. He envisioned some really good statistic sites, like kind of like this, which may help me with getting more data available, so that I could include more data into the site. So that's one thing I get a lot of questions about, and then the other has been a lot of questions about the forks,
Mm.
and those are proving to be a little elusive at the moment. Again, if I was a Web3 developer, I'd go after that data, but there's no real priority for like a dev right
Yeah.
at the moment to go after it, to get the data and supply it to somebody else. If they're going to get the data, they're going to do it for their applications. And
Sure.
so like this Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum fair or whatever,
Mhm.
that stuff at the moment is too premature to kind of bring it into this environment. But with that, any other questions, right? Those are the
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
ones.
Awesome. I appreciate that, and for yourself coming on and being able to make time and things like that. That's really appreciative. Bearded Aussie, I think you might have just answered this, but just to clarify, so I mean, yeah, this was like 11 minutes ago, but he says, "Are you going to add HSI stakes in the future?" I think we just covered that. Um, we've got
Yep,
E
yep.
Anderson. He says, "Love the website and resources. Great guest." And then, yeah, once again, that was the point of this stream was to, Maddie's got a stream as well that everyone should go watch. I should probably link that into the description as well. That you guys kind of go into more of the depth and things like that. But hopefully this kind of barely scratches the surface to incentivize people to go to hexfire.io and look at the resources themselves. And then so Franklin, we got Jerry Oaksmith in the chat. Once again, just a lot of positive feedback. Blockeroni. What else do we got? He says they also don't share the data for free, so I appreciate it, Chrispy. Yeah, people like yourself are making it easier for myself and others to be able to tweak the staking ladder and strategies. Crypto Summer says total amount of T shares is the most important detail in my opinion. And then it's really cool. You got that OA filter. I love that. That's a really cool feature. We got RH Max. I saw him and we did like a little meetup last night in Washington State.
Oh,
So
nice.
he says, yeah, it was really fun. It was really cool. And, I like the local meetups. I like the, travel meetups as well. So it's always good meeting the community.
Yeah,
Everyone
me
should go
too.
check out his channel. And then honestly, I think yeah, Jerry's saying $10 hex, like holy moly. And kind of like for yourself, you had mentioned. I think a lot of people have maybe experienced the same thing, whether it's with crypto or other things, where maybe you heard about it one time, kind of dismissed it, and then the second time you heard of it, X amount of time later, you look into it a little bit more. So just a reminder to everyone that Bitcoin used to be under a penny too, and so did Hex.
Mhm.
So it's pretty cool.
Well, you were kicking around when we were sub a penny, and
Yeah, yeah.
I remember talking to RG3
Mhm.
via DM.
Sure.
It was fantasy that we were going to get to a nickel or
Yeah,
10
yeah.
cents, right? So it's really hard to suspend disbelief in crypto, but you really need to understand that it's all possible.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, then you won't be prepared. Now, on the other hand, okay, I don't want people going off the deep end because it doesn't go to
Sure.
$10, but the price is going to go up, and
Mm.
that's my opinion. That's my
Sure.
uneducated opinion. But look at
Yeah,
all the
very
people
cool.
we have still kicking around in here, man. And I mean, it's no ghost
Yeah.
town, that's for sure.
Mm.
Um, yeah, yeah. And hey, on the point about the Hadron and Icosa ecosystem,
Mhm.
even though I'm not putting stats up there specifically for those, those tokens or that system, the T-share rate plays a pivotal role in everything that's going on there, right? Because it is based on hex. So for the guys and ladies doing Icosa type of stuff, yeah, definitely go check out that sheet. I try to post over there every once in a while with them, but keep an eye on those numbers because it does make a difference to what happens there. And I did see somebody threw something up there about the derivatives. Maybe it was Franklin. Not
Sure, sure, sure.
derivatives, but about the forks.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting fact. We now have a preview. Somebody said this. It might have been Randy
Mhm.
Halarski on Twitter. We now know what will happen to T-share rate when we do
Mm.
the fork into PulseChain. Initially, nothing, but then
Yeah.
you start to see them diverge. And I haven't quite gotten to the point that I have the data to be able to show them on all three chains. Not sure I will,
Mhm.
but I have
Sure.
gone to look at them, and all three are different, right? So Ethereum's a
Yeah.
different number than Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum fair. I am digging into the yield, and by the way, this is in no way endorsing people go spend money on these chains. I
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's reasonable to talk about the fact they exist because we
Mm.
have
Mhm.
hex. I mean, I have hex
Yeah.
there. I have
Yeah.
now
Yep.
have now I have these three. Not only hex, I got everything right. So I got these
Mm.
three hex ladders right on these three
Mhm.
different chains. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that I'm not going to lose them if they exist. Right, I want to try to hold on to them. And that means that when I have a stake coming out, I'm going to have to go in that stake at some point. But incredibly, it appears to me at the moment that payouts on those two other chains are somewhere around 10 hex per T-share per day,
Mm. Mhm.
which, if anybody hasn't looked recently, is substantially more than what we get daily on
Yeah.
Ethereum, and that's because of the different staking demographics. But boy, does it queue up some interesting possibilities if
Yeah.
one of those chains survives, right?
Mm.
You know,
Well, and like you
because
mentioned too, with Pulse Chain, it's going to be, it's not going to be exactly the same staking participation from chain to chain. So it'll be a little bit different too. That's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
thing to think about.
yeah, it's been pretty interesting. So, and yeah, and yet, like all this other stuff, these are new chains. Information's not readily available yet, right?
Hmm.
So it might take us some time.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, to your point, nonetheless, it's so cool, man. How much it's evolved. Like same thing, was following Richard since he was a Bitcoin maxi, and then he likes Ethereum, and then and then all of a sudden when Hex comes out, we start getting airdrops and things like that, and just how much the system and community and things like that have evolved over time has been fun to witness, and it'll
Yeah,
be really cool to see. I mean, it's only, it's almost been, 3 years, but it'll be cool to just see as we progress. I mean, 100% uptime, things like that is just unheard of anywhere else, even in the traditional system. So I love to
yeah,
see
yeah.
where we're going and what the future is going to be.
Bullish as hell, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get all excited.
Me too, man. Satoshi Hexamoto says, great job on the site, man. We've got the Coin Critic once again. Once again, we're kind of just wrapping up here with any last minute questions or just comments. Coin Critic says, thanks for the Sunday stream. The website will be useful for my next staking ladder on Pulse Chain. I totally agree. Bearded Aussie, he's got a YouTube channel as well, says, thank you. Once again, let's see.
Thank you,
Well,
Bearded.
Franklin's got some comments. Yeah, exactly. Thanks to everyone that's spending their time watching the stream. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. Let me just see if there's anything else. Looks like, at least for the last comment that we'll want to cover, Franklin just says, "I agree, Chrispy. The craziest thing is how the hex how the payouts will grow. There are a lot of hexagons who don't even realize they have hex on other chains. There will be massive bleed outs. So yeah, that's pretty cool to think about too.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him. I think you might have seen it, maybe not, but my position on this isn't. I wouldn't have chosen probably to launch new chains with hex on them. But
Sure.
if our hex is going to be on those new chains, I want it to be the best looking hex on that chain it can be, right?
Yeah.
You know, because the amount of I just think simply the amount of publicity that's coming from it. Can you imagine all the people that are looking at these things and all they're seeing is hex at the top of the chart for both of those? There's thousands of people who don't even know what hex is. And again, I'm not a strong proponent at all for moving cash around. I know some people have done that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm rooting for them. If those chains survive, I want hex to be the best token on those chains.
I agree, man. It you know, I mean, especially in the very beginning, and you know, even to this day, I would say that there's maybe a little bit less gatekeeping than there was in the beginning, just because you can't deny the success, right? But it's cool to see some of the walls slowly going down, and I think that PulseChain is going to be a major contributor to that as well, because once again, people, like you mentioned with some of these other forks, not like we really have any control over them, but with things like PulseChain and things like that that include the system state, people are going to have no other option but to hear about it, whether they're in the community or not. They're going to have their, you know, their ERC20s and, you know, NFTs and things like that copied over. So the future is definitely bright, and like you mentioned, it's cool that you took a lot of time to build this, because obviously that, you know, that took a lot of your energy and effort and things like that to host the website and data and continue improving on it. So that's really cool. And I think in the bear market, once again, if people just, you know, focus on things that they can improve or build on, or just you know, once their state comes out, how are you gonna, and I'm gonna really use that, because I might have a state coming out at the end of the year of the yield and the principal, and how many days it takes to get to those same amount of T-shares. So that's really going to help with the ladder. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think a lot of these tools and features just makes it that much better for all of the ecosystem and participants to succeed.
Totally agree. I agree, man.
All right, man. Well, hey, I didn't want this stream to be too long. I mean, we're almost at the 90-minute mark. I do have your Twitter channel, or just your Twitter account, in the description, and I've got it on. I'll put it on the screen for just a second, just so people. 1 second here. Let me bring that up. So twitter.com/Chrispy_man2. Once again, founder of hexfire.io. So if you're not following him, definitely go give him a follow. And once again, man, I appreciate you coming on and kind of, you know, briefly covering all that the website has to offer. And other than that, I mean, do you have any last minute things before we do the outro?
I would just reiterate what you said. I thank everybody for listening and give me a chance to spread the knowledge out about it. No sense having good alpha if nobody knows about it. So trying to get it out there. And I think that kind of a core group of maybe 50 to 100 people who are like super involved and interested. So join in, and if you have any questions, thoughts, things you want to see, let me know. We'll see if we can put it together.
Heck yeah. All right, everyone. Once again, thanks, Chrispy, for coming on. We're going to play the outro and let everyone get back to the rest of their day.
Right.
And
stake that hex.
Exactly. So here's the outro, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in, all, and see you on the next one.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Say hey. Say hey, 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 hey. Say hey. motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch!
Thank you, Richard, for creating and founding the most amazing and disruptive financial technology cryptocurrency ever. Thank you, sir. And nice streams, Mr. BallietBran. It's fabulous.